You're listening to the official Minnesota Wild podcast, presented by Acrisure.
John, any update on Marcus Johansson and what happened last night, maybe his availability tomorrow?
I'm not sure yet on him. He's still getting looked at, so I would say questionable right now.
That was a hit during the third period, it looked like, right? Or was there, do you recall a specific instance that he was in?
I don't remember exactly what period. It might have been the McNabb. It was a far side from the bench in there. I forget which zone it was, to be honest, but I remember it was, far side.
Your lines have had such great chemistry. If he isn't available tomorrow, how do you want to shuffle that deck?
Well, we've just had some initial talks on that because I'm not sure that he is going to be out. He's getting looked at, so I'll wait to get a little bit more feedback from the trainers here in a little while, and then then we may have to make some decisions, or we may not have to make any.
With Matt Boldy, the offense is obvious, but to me, the impact he's making on the penalty kill is really significant. What has he brought to the table, and why is he so good in that area?
Yeah, he's been very good on the penalty kill. I mean, he's he cares. He has good details 5-on-5 without the puck, and I think he's a really smart player. He wants to kill. He's engaged in it. His details are really good, and when you put a player that's a highly talented, high thinker, that has strong attention to detail in the kill, he's doing a really good job. He's been a real factor for us.
John, how do you strike the balance between sticking what works for the team and doing what they've been doing well versus Vegas is probably going to try to make, corrections or change or do, try to get better and figure it out? Like, how do you strike that balance between, like, staying focused on what you can control but knowing, like, they're going to try something different probably for Game 4 since it hasn't been working for them?
Yeah, it's a fine balance. I think that you're always focused on your team and your game, and then you take some things that were adjusted yesterday and you kind of come into that, and then I think you have to let the game unfold. I think in between games you have to reinforce and correct your own game. And also some things that you may see from them on, hey, we could look to do this or that. But I think there's a big part of in-game too, that you have to make sure you're alert of if there's something that's different, or you're like, okay, this isn't working as well. Why? A lot of it is in-game, in between period, on the bench, whatever it might be. I think that's a big part of say adjustments and things, and not really overwhelming or getting too consumed with the other team, and you can still stay focused on your group in between games.
How do you hone your vision or your feel for that, John? Like, after Game 2 you mentioned it could be changes, you look at this, but you don't, and it worked out. So how as a coach, is it reinforced by video or conversations? Like, how do you push the right buttons when you have options?
Well, I'll give you an example. So everyone was asking me about the third pair D, right? And everyone was saying, well, Zeev, and you go back and they're -3, and you go back through, and one of the goals, was it really them? Was it really him? No, it was a circumstance that happened, but you also look at the dynamic of the game and say, okay, we like this, we like this, we like this. So you have to, that's where, I think your focus, and that's why you rewatch the video. That's why why I have great assistant coaches that go through, for example, if something like that comes in, we'll go back through and say, can you look at their shifts? Look at every single shift in that game and get back to me on what you see, or cut some clips and let's look at it. Same thing, I think, with the fourth line. It was like, well, they were hemmed in, but there were other lines that got hemmed in. And I think when you shop and compare the games, I felt that Brazeau and Trennan and Hartsey were a really good line in Game 1. Marco's line with Gus and Foligno didn't work, but Marco's a really good player. So the thought process was, okay, we have two guys, they're physical, they're strong in the O-zone. That might help, and then maybe add a little scoring in there with Marco. And so and then sometimes you go back through and you look at the game and you're like, okay, this is exact. You know what? We need to make a change, or the player isn't playing well, or we think this might be a different. So that's how you have to go through it. There's the emotion of the game, there's the feedback after the game, but then I think that's where you have to stay focused on your group, and then you talk about it, and then you try to make the best decision you see fit.
You mentioned Marco. Did you hit the right buttons then? Do you think him getting rewarded last night is going to propel him forward and give him a little bit more of that confidence to be that impact player that could be in the series?
I think anytime a player scores, it helps. I wouldn't say that I pushed the right buttons. I think that he played better. I think he was more competitive on the puck. He was more engaged. He looked, he was more tenacious, more courageous, and that's why he was good in the face-off circle. So I think it was more. I think more the player understanding after 2 games. Okay, why did I get changed? How come I'm not having that much success? Here's what needs to happen. Here's what we need to see better, and he played better. So therefore, that's truly because of him, not because of a change.
The decision making as a coach, how much does that come with experience? Maybe if you're a younger coach in your first playoff series, we kind of go with the ebb of the emotions of a thing, or maybe make a change quicker, and then maybe now you can maybe have the assistant coaches weigh in, or have a different kind of way your process of doing it has changed, I guess, in the time you've been a coach in that playoff. Yeah,
it certainly has. I think particularly at the NHL level, because I think everything is so magnified, and there's more media, there's higher emotions, there's it's the highest level of hockey. There's more at stake. And I think, when you learn how to make decisions, how to make tough decisions, and a lot of it comes on instincts and gut, but it's not just random. Like, you got to get all this information in. The game, the feedback, the management feedback, the player feedback, the coach's feedback. You have to take that all in, and then you have to analyze it, and then you have to make the best decision that you think is right, and you have to stick with it regardless of whether it's right or wrong or works or doesn't work. Your process has to be consistent, and when it is, more often than not, you give yourself a chance to make the best decisions.
With Boldy, what have you seen from him as far as mental durability? Obviously he hasn't had Kirill on his line the whole season, but he also went through that stretch, I think, late February, early March, where I think it was 9 or 10 games where he didn't score and just seemed to be, kind of keep plugging away. Just what have you seen from him that way, just mentally?
I've just seen a guy that values winning and understands and has learned, and I think understands and believes that he can help the team win in multiple ways. Yeah. Obviously, scoring and point producing is one of Matt's strengths and something that he wants to do and we need him to do. But if sometimes the puck doesn't go in for you, I think what he's learning now is what the impact he can have on the team with how he checks and how he competes and his body language. And when it's not going right for him in that area, there's no drop off in his game, and he continues to play. And I think it's also the belief and the confidence of a player maturing that, okay, it's not going as well for me right now, but he understands what his identity is, and he can stick to it and works in the right way to try to get it back on track.
John, I'm curious, do you ever watch Matt Zuccarello and just kind of appreciate his journey and where he's come from to get to this point to be an elite player? I mean, Norway's only produced 7 NHLers. He's obviously the best one of them, and all the odds in the world are stacked against him.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a tremendous amount of respect for Zuki as a player, coaching against him, in the league, and now having the opportunity to coach him. Exactly what you said. I mean, he's an older player. He's in unbelievable shape, and the reason he is a tenacious, competitive guy that's got a lot of backbone, and I really appreciate that about him. He can't get to where he got to. He's a highly talented player. But you look at him now, he's smart, he plays on both sides of the puck. The tighter the games are, or the more competitive, contested games, he finds ways to be able to compete. And to me, he's a smart player. He's got great feedback and opinions. Like I respect the fact that he's not afraid to say what he feels either, to me. I think that's healthy with a veteran player. But he always has the opportunity, if we debate something, he always has an opportunity. He always can go back out and deliver. So I think that's where he is. He's got an unbelievable competitive spirit about him to get to where he's gotten to, and now you see it every day.
John, with Zeev, it's a small sample size, but the comfortability and the growth from Game 1 to Game 3, in your eyes, what have you seen?
I think his checking game has gotten a lot better. I think he's more comfortable with some of the reads and details that we want. And what I said earlier is that he's a courageous player. Like he'll go back for pucks under pressure, and he's not skittish. He'll go back, he'll make a play, he'll take a hit. I really liked the way he defended last night. I thought he was hard on pucks. I thought if he played against bigger players, he had great sticks, stayed on inside position, boxed out at the net front. Those are the things. His line rush defense was there. Those are the things as you continue to move on in the series. Do you take them out? Do you not? Are we seeing growth? Are there areas that, yes, there is a mistake. Yes, a puck goes in the net. But I think over the course of it, are you seeing a guy that is getting better and progressing? And that's what I see.
John, overall, just how much fun is this, or is it just all stress?
No, it's the best. It's the best time of year. It's great. It's highly competitive, and it's you got to be on your game every day. But it's the best time of year. It's the most competitive time of year, and you have an opportunity. You go through 82 games to get to this, and then you got to go through 82 and do a good job to just give yourself a chance to compete for the Stanley Cup. And now we're trying to give ourselves a chance to compete for the Stanley Cup. So to me, it's not stress, it's excitement.
Going back with that growth you've seen, is so no plans to maybe make some alterations in Game 4?
Yeah, and that's the one thing I want to say now. Like it's just it's like every player, right? Like there's good things, and you see that. But it doesn't mean that he's never going to come out, right? Or another player might not come out. In saying what I've said is it's truly, as I said, game by game, and trying to make sure that you're looking at different opportunities and where guys are at and what the lineup is. What he's showing is he's growing and he's doing some good things, and we feel confident with him in there. But it doesn't mean that I would never make a change. We might make a change if we feel it's right, or that dynamic changes. Yeah. It's game to game.
I know you have to wait until Johansson is cleared or not, and you have these decisions to make there. But are you open to pulling a guy like Oberyn into play, or you would rather have guys who have been playing with you guys a lot more, and like moving guys up the lineup and moving in? That's something we'll certainly discuss. What are the options that we have here? What would be the fit, the combos? But that would be certainly part of the discussion.
We always joke that players wouldn't know when to release the puck if it weren't for the crowd yelling shoot, but Hartman said he heard him yelling shoot, so that's why he glanced at the clock before he made that pass. So got to credit the fans for that one.
Yeah, seventh man, they get it. The seventh man gets the assist on that one.
John, when you look at Gus and the way that he's grown, is the biggest part of it mental? Last night he said after he gave up that first goal, he was like, he wanted to beat himself up. And then he said, that's not going to do me any good. And then he made the next save, and it kind of took off from there. And it just seems like that's kind of maybe a different mindset.
Yeah, I would say his mental game is much more consistent, tougher. And that's good. I think he gave himself, he came back in great shape. I think it all starts to me with your physical fitness, because that gives you the confidence, to be able to do what you need to do, and gives yourself the vehicle to be able to do it. Now, I think his consistency and his mental toughness and his ability to let some things go and stay focused. I think there's a lot of pushback in his game this year where something like that could happen last night, and it doesn't. I haven't seen him unravel. It's just, there's bad things that are going to happen in the game, but he's able to readjust, get right back to his game, and continue to fight and compete and make the next big save and get himself back rolling again.
John, how important do you think that ramp play was for Carell at the end of the season to kind of get his legs back before?
I think it was really important. I think for both him and Eki, when you're off for that period of time, there was no doubt in my mind that those guys are going to come back physically fit and ready to go. But there is a difference of details, game timing, getting back into the flow of the structure of how you want to play. So that becomes automatic, and you can be more instinctual. And then I do think with a player like Kirill in particular, I think the timing, his hands, the timing of how he can create offense at a game-like pace was important prior to coming into the playoffs.
We see the goals, we see the passes. Is there anything you're noticing below the surface that's allowing him to drive play in the way he has?
Yes, I think he's playing the game that's required to win this time of year. I think when you look at him, he's managing the puck, he's playing north, he's playing direct, he's shooting the puck, he's resetting pucks. Like, there's not a lot of, if there's a play to be made, he's making them, but there's nothing forced. If he doesn't have one, that line and Kirill in particular, I think they're just tenacious. Like, they're putting their D under pressure, they're willing to forecheck and track and reload, they're shooting pucks. They're defending hard. That's what's required to win. Now, when you have players of that caliber that are willing to do that at a high level, the offense comes.
Yeah, they're kind of setting that standard for the rest of the room, too. Boldy and Kirill in particular with their work ethic in addition to the skill set.
Yes, and like I said, I think playing the game that's required to win this time of year. And as we all know, they're willing to play with no time, no space, and they do what is right to compete to create it. And then they're doing a good job when they don't have the puck of really trying to take away the other team's time and space and be defensively responsible and tenacious, and they're doing it on both sides.
How hard is 2-1 in a series mentally? Because you're halfway there, right? But there's still so much to go, but clearly there's optimism.
Yeah, I mean, we just talked to the team today, I think, all year long. Like, I'm a huge believer in your mindsets from training camp through the regular season. Like, you start with the end in mind. What are the habits and the mentalities that we want when you get in this situation? It's game to game. It's staying focused. It's playing the game that you're in. It's being where our feet are. It's not getting ahead of ourselves. The toughest hockey is going to come in the series. We know that. So we just stay focused. We took the lessons from last night. Rest and recover today, stay mentally focused. We got to come back out and be ready to compete. So, to us, it's not so much looking at the finish line. The other thing I'll tell you is I think our experience down the stretch, it probably wasn't fun going through it. You'd like to be in with 7 or 8 games left in the season, but again, it was right there. It's like we couldn't get the fish in the boat, fast enough, but we had to stay with it. We couldn't look ahead. We couldn't want to get that X next to our name without going through the process. We just got to go through the process.
For an extraordinary advantage in sports, you need a game plan. For an extraordinary advantage everywhere else, all you need is Acrisure. With a high-tech human approach to insurance, cybersecurity, and more, Acrisure helps you take care of what you care about. That makes winning easy. See what Acrisure's extraordinary advantage can do for you at Acrisure.com.